My friends, hello and welcome to Perfect Dark Speedlore, the series where we take a look at one stage from the classic Nintendo 64 game Perfect Dark and talk about the records that have been set over the past 2 decades, the strategies that have been developed, and the players at the center of it all through the lens of the world record progression on the stage. And tonight we're looking at War Perfect Agent, which explores many early characters from the game's history, including one legendary claim by a founding father of the elite community itself. So sit back, grab yourself a nice beverage and enjoy this episode of Speedlore. And for this episode of Perfect Dark Speedlore, like all others, I welcome, of course, my co-host, friend, and reigning champion of Perfect Dark, who holds 27 world records in the game at this moment, Karl Jobst. Welcome, Karl. How's it going tonight?
Hello, it's going good. It's great to be back. I'm very excited to do another episode of Perfect Dark Speedlore. I hope everyone is having a fantastic day.
I sure am, and I think, a lot of people are happy as well, and I think that's going to be the case. So, what do we got tonight, Karl? War Perfect Agent. Tell us a little bit about this level.
War Perfect Agent is the third bonus mission. So you unlock this by completing the entire game on the Perfect Agent difficulty. And as you can see on the screen there, the mission objectives revolve around killing 3 Skedder Kings. And I'll just note out, on this one, you play as a mine character. So on most of the other levels, you're playing as Joanna, obviously. The difference in this level is that you're playing as a mine. Now, there's just a really subtle difference here in how the game controls. The control is a lot more sensitive, so you turn a lot quicker, and it's just like a little bit more difficult to actually control.
Yeah, no, I mean, I remember this level being really hard for me to even unlock at all, because you have to beat the entire game on Perfect Agent, the most difficult difficulty. I remember especially like Mayan SOS, another level where you play as one of these gray alien Mayans. Is really hard on Perfect Agent. And what's interesting in Perfect Dark is that of the 3 bonus stages, 2 of them you play as a Mayan, and 1 of you play as Mr. Blonde. So in all cases, you don't play as the main character, Joanna. You imagine in Golden Knife in the bonus missions, you have to play as like Valentin and Natalia. It'd be kind of crazy. So, all right. So you recorded this example run of the level for us the other night, and yeah, just tell us what's going on here. Looks like you got a squad of buddies with you.
Yes. I think it's 4. I hope it's 4. It could be 3 or 4 of these Mayan dudes. You're supposed to accompany them as they help you sort of take down the Skedder army. Now, they can die, but if either of the Mayans die or if the Skedder die, they just automatically respawn. So it's just a battle basically between the Mayans and the Skedder.
Yeah, and sort of the whole kind of storyline of the game is like, you're obviously a human. There are some bad human dudes working with these evil aliens, the Skedar, who are these kind of, reptilian creatures. And they're the good aliens, the gray aliens, who you're allied with. And this is just kind of the culmination of all that. You're on the kind of home planet, and there's a big battle to win the war.
I'm pretty sure this takes place after you finish the game. Some of the other bonus missions take place before the end of the actual game. I think this is afterwards. So in the end of the game, you kill the Skedder King on the last level, but it's not really the Skedder King. So now we're really back to kill the actual Skedder King.
Oh, I see. Of course. So there was
that was the first king that we just killed.
Okay, and so this level almost sounds like a place similarly to GoldenEye's Egypt level, where you have to defeat Baron Samedi 3 times.
Yeah, pretty much exactly the same. Yeah, you have to kill them in order, basically, because the rest of the level's locked to you until you defeat the first king, and then similarly you have to go number 2 and then number 3 in that order.
Yeah, so it makes it linear enough. Where you're not going to get too lost in this kind of maze of a stage. And now, in Perfect Dark, a lot of the stages are kind of reused. This level is used in the Skedar Ruins level. I remember getting lost a lot in Skedar Ruins.
Yeah, Skedar has. It's pretty funny. I don't really know how you're supposed to play Skedar Ruins because I've only ever played it how we played on speedruns, and we skip a whole bunch. There is some sort of labyrinth area to it, but I'm not really familiar with it. You know how it is with speedrunners. Sometimes we don't even know how to casually play a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it uses most of it's the same level basically as the Skedar Ruins.
And there we go, 228. You could see it was a pretty casual playthrough. Very good showing of the stage and what goes on. So where do we start here, Carl? I'm going to show a page of. I mean, it's really just a web page with text on it. So what's the context behind this page here?
Yeah, this page are the world records before the Perfect Dark Elite even existed. So the Perfect Dark Elite was created, basically, or the actual rankings page was created on the 1st of August 2000. So this list here is just the world records before that rankings actually went up. And I talk about it in my Birth of Perfect Dark speedrunning video. But before the actual rankings were around, people just had their own times page where they had all their times listed on a single page. And that's what everyone did back then. And then, so this is the collection of all the best times from there. So this was created by Endgamer, he was one of the founding fathers. And Endgamer was really important in preserving a lot of the Perfect Dark history. So in the early years of the 2000s, Endgamer was basically the elite historian. And he has to be credited a lot with preserving, a lot of this history. He saved heaps of pages. He really, really documented a lot of the earlier stuff in the first years of Perfect Dark speedrunning.
No, I agree, and certainly Endgamer and I butted heads a fair bit, as I think you might even see a little bit later. But looking back now, it's like a lot of this stuff that I talk about, if it wasn't preserved by Endgamer and he didn't kind of lead the community that way, I wouldn't have it to talk about. So really, he did a lot of great work. And as you can see here, if you look towards the bottom, it does say War Perfect Agent 122 by a guy named Snap. Snap was, again, the guy who created the whole ranking system, this incredible, automatically updating web page. Really, I mean, that's always been such a plus in the elite community is how the ranking system works together and all the times pages and stuff. So quite a legend in his own right. And you got War Perfect Agent 122. But again, at this point, this is like, the year 2000, July 2000? It was like 7 dudes who were just hanging out and sharing their times. That's all it was.
That's what it was all about back then.
And then
everyone doing it was just doing it because they loved the game. It was very, very organic. There was no community or anything. It's just people got together. It was kind of a very different time back then.
And then this next page is like about a month later when the rankings were finally made. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's impressive and kind of cool to look back at this time. Now we see there's a War Agent 104 by Marshmallow. And this is, really the first instance when people had a ranking system to look at and were able to, like, kind of submit their times in a way.
Yeah, so this is the first iteration of the rankings. This is how they looked. They actually looked this way for a long time. They pretty much remained
almost
like this until, like, 2012.
I was going to say 2012, yeah. They looked pretty much like this, more or less. Crazy. And so they're
pretty crazy how good these rankings were, like, straight out of the gate. I mean, they were really, really amazing for back then. It was crazy. Like, Snapdragon is an absolute genius. I mean, he literally is a genius. Like, he's competed on world stages in problem solving and programming and everything. So Perfect Dark was, and GoldenEye even, was so lucky to have him specifically in the community at that time, and he created this, which really set the foundation for the entire community.
Yeah, it is true, and I mean, I think, and I'm sure you agree, that if this stuff hadn't come together when it did back in the year 2000, a lot of this doesn't end up happening, for sure. Now, one thing that would end up happening not much long after this rankings page was made was the first speedrun we're going to show you of the night. And this is by Marshmallow. He had a 104, as you saw there. And this is going to be an improvement on that record. So he's just kind of walking through where you know...
So when I played in the example run, I used the Mayan team that we have with us as cover and to help out with these getters. So obviously in speedruns we don't do that, but this level is notoriously difficult for surviving. If you just charge on ahead and ignore your team, it's insanely difficult to survive. It's really, really bad. Even doing the example run, I almost died, and I was using my Mayan team, and I know what I'm doing. So just to run through like this is really, really, really risky. What
are the odds of, like, how many runs do you get to the end of the level when you're playing this level to speedrun it?
It's super rare. I would say, not many times. You pretty much take what you get. So you take what you get, basically.
Like less than 5%, certainly, maybe less than 2 or 1%.
Less than 5.
Wow,
yeah, maybe less than 1%. It's pretty crazy.
There you go. And so Marsh put together a 1-minute record, and that looks like it was in August of 2000. So again, all what you just saw, all that from the original webpage to the rankings being found to this run, that's all in the span of about 2 months, which is pretty wild, especially back then. And who was this?
So Marshmallow. Should we talk about Marshmallow a little bit?
Who was this Marshmallow character?
So he was, I'll just state, he was an early champion. So him and Snapdragon had this rivalry back when the rankings were created. So it's him and Snapdragon were having this back and forth through August. Snapdragon was an agent master, and Marshmallow was this perfect agent master. And it was really interesting how, sometimes people stick to certain difficulties and they really favor them more. I'm more of an agent player. I love agent. For some reason, some people really like perfect agent, which scares the hell out of me to play. But Marshmallow was a really, really popular contributor to game FAQs back in the day. And he was really one of the more prolific contributors, and he was very well known for his FAQs. So I don't know if anyone here is old enough to know how big GameFAQs was back then, but GameFAQs was absolutely huge. Absolutely huge.
Yeah, no, this isn't one of his game FAQs submissions. This is one of yours, is that right?
This is one of my bad boys, yeah. Right. I had GoldenEye one as well, but I wanted to show you this one for the artwork. It's immaculate.
So Carl and I were talking about this last night, actually. About who remembers game FAQs. I mean, it's hard to believe this stuff happened. This one was written in 2003, but some of these happened.
No, it's actually written in 2000.
Oh, okay. There you go. Even I was going to say that's when a lot of them were written. There's people who are adults now who weren't born at this time, right? It is a crazy era to imagine, and these were hot back then, And I was telling Carl, it wasn't just text of. All you could do was write text, right? And you would write and you describe what you do in the game, how to beat the game. But people would still try to fancy it up, make it look cool with this ASCII art, and look at all this stuff. Version 1, Karl Jobst, May 2000. Email, faqgod@hotmail.com. That's pretty damn good, man. And
my ego has been pretty solid since day one, man.
And I like this copyright notice that you've put in here as well. You're telling people, not to use it on their sites and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, so Marshmallow was another guy like Carl who was a big submitter to all these FAQs on game FAQs. And I kind of thought it was interesting because, like, back then it was all done just for love, or just you wanted to share your knowledge with people. And kind of maybe in some ways build this reputation as an FAQ god, and have some people go, oh, cool, great FAQ, thanks, man. But you think about it nowadays, and it's like, this is the equivalent of, in the year 2000, of guys who make tutorial videos on YouTube now and get thousands and thousands of views, thousands of dollars, and actually do really well for themselves. they have a huge incentive to do this. Back then, it was all for love.
Yeah, there was obviously no monetization or anything. It's pretty interesting how our hobbies change over time and what people have fun doing. But back then, writing FAQs was really fun, at least for me and a lot of people. We did get some recognition. I guess there was some incentive, but definitely no monetization at all to come from this.
Yeah,
they're all passion projects basically. And Marshmallow he did have a GoldenEye. He did have a couple of GoldenEye FAQs. He had a couple of Perfect Dark FAQs, and he had them pretty much. Well, when a game's released, Perfect Dark was released in May 2000. Everyone sort of rushes to get their FAQs out. His FAQs were out pretty quickly from day one.
Yeah, and so again, that's why it can be compared so similarly to YouTube tutorials or stuff, right? Like, oh, here's how to do the new Fortnite challenges of the week, and even now, like, big companies like Forbes are rushing to put out articles to tell you how to do it because they know so many people want to see it. And yeah, it kind of speaks a lot about kind of being in the right place at the right time, right? If guys like you and Marsh, who were doing this in the year 2000, if it just happened to be an era where you could gain kind of more following and monetization, that kind of stuff, who knows where you guys would have been today, right? And that there is so much luck involved with everything in life, I would say. That's the kind of lesson that I took from this. But it's cool you guys did this just for the passion and the love of the game. Now we have another Marsh contemporary coming up. Should we show this run? I don't think there's any. We have Paragon X9. I don't think there's really any audio on this one, unfortunately. It gets lost over time.
And I just wanted to point out that 1 minute time by Marshmallow is still worth 49 points today, which is crazy. Okay, so the game has been out for less than 3 months, and he gets a time that's almost worthy of being proof called today if it was achieved today. It's really insane.
Yeah, so that means fewer than 50 people have beaten that time today, and this is in the year 2000. Yeah, it is pretty remarkable. And we'll see if Paragon can improve on the run there.
And we'll have to have a look at this one again, but I wanted to explain a couple of things about what's happening at the start.
Sure, yeah.
We'll wait for this one to finish, and then we'll go back.
Yeah, and you kind of, getting a feel for how the level's played. You go and defeat the first king, then you kind of double back, go across a bridge, and then the next two kings are kind of nearby each other. And this is a 59-second run, so a 1 second improvement.
Yes.
So here we go.
So I wanted to explain, just pause it for a sec, because the time we're showing right now is done by Paragon. This time was originally untied by Discombobulator, which was on the 20th of January 2001. So Disco didn't have a video for that. Back then, proof requirements were pretty lax. So a lot of the early records don't have videos. I mean, I wanted to say about Marshmallow, one thing about him was his videos were really, really, really ahead of the time, because they were decent quality. You could see what's going on. They had sound. Sound was an absolutely huge deal to get sound in your video. Most videos from back then don't have sound. And that's one of the reasons why when I made my videos, they all had music attached to them, because there's no sound. So you may as well put something on there. I wouldn't have done music if they had sound, basically. Mm-hmm. So his videos were amazing for back then. But Disco got 1 minute on the 20th of January.
59.
Then Paragon tied, 59, yeah. And then Paragon tied this a couple of weeks later. And you'll notice at the start here how he's stopping to kill this Skedder. So you start off with the Phoenix. Now, the Phoenix isn't good enough to kill these Skedder Kings in one shot, so you need the Mauler. So all these Skedder that are coming out, they have Maulers. You can use the charge shot on the Mauler just to kill them in one hit. So you can't do that with the Phoenix. That's why we need to farm a Mauler basically from the first Skedders that we see.
Yeah, no, and each weapon in Perfect Dark has like 2 settings to it, which is kind of cool. Mm-hmm. GoldenEye certainly does not have that. But yeah, with this, when the gun goes red, you can one-shot these kings.
Yes. Now, I wanted to point out a couple of things about the run.
Yep.
First of all, you'll notice on the doors how he stops running before going through.
You'll probably see that at this one coming up here. He presses B to open the door and just sits
and
back.
he just stands there. So we only discovered full speed. I believe it was Boss who first discovered that. This is before we even knew about that. So they stopped at doors, and a lot of people did that, not knowing that it lost a lot of time. So it's really unfortunate because these runs were this run's pretty good, and it's unfortunate. The only reason why it's so slow is because things that he didn't know about. But technically, everything else was good.
Yeah, so it's like he got 59 here. Maybe if he maintained full speed at all the doors, he could have got 58 or maybe even 57. Like that's
definitely, maybe even 56.
Wow, and it truly is just a lack of knowledge. You think, okay, I'm going to stop at the door and then proceed. You don't know that you've lost your full speed and it takes a few seconds to get back to it.
Yeah, and a lot of people. I mean, it's probably similar for a lot of games. Runners back in the day were still pretty good. I mean, a lot of the time it's just bad strategies. Strategies obviously develop over time. But it's not like these players back then were bad. I mean, these are still pretty good runs. It's just that there's a few things here and there that they just didn't know about and they couldn't take advantage of that we do now.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, I know you hear the comparison a lot with like professional athletes and whatnot. And I think the modern day athletes themselves know how good the legends of the past were, especially if they had modern equipment and knowledge and training and all that kind of stuff. So I think the same is true here. Is there anything more about Paragon? I know you put out a cool video about him before we move on to the next run here.
So Paragon is probably the most influential Perfect Dark player of all time. So he became champion in September of 2000, and he pretty much remained champion until 2002. He developed so many strategies that we use. It's really insane how much this one person did. I did a video of him on my YouTube. So if you want to know more about individual champions, I'm doing a full series on every single Perfect Dark champion. But if you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, go watch that video. So I give some more background about these players because GoldenEye, we've had a lot of lore already, so we kind of know who these players are. But Perfect Dark, no one really knows who the earlier players are. So I'm going through all of that stuff, including the very beginning of the Perfect Dark rankings, so you can check that out. And I wanted to say one more thing about the run.
Yep.
Was the end.
Okay, yep.
Very end, the very final shot, he used, it's hard to see because the quality of the video is so bad, but he presses R to aim, and instead of sort of running into the room and shooting the king, he just opens the door and just shoots it from back, which was actually really, really, really crazy how early he did that, because everyone else at this time is not doing that. Everyone else is just sort of running in and shooting them and taking the time, but he was pretty crazy. And yeah, his run was really, really good. It was really just not taking advantage of certain techniques that made this only 59. It should have been much better.
Wow, wild. And I think the next run we're going to see does take advantage of those techniques, whether he knew it or not.
Yes. So here in this run, he doesn't stop. But this is you playing Expert Gamer?
This is Expert Gamer, the introduction to Expert Gamer, and now we're in April 2001.
This is 58.
Yeah, Untouched beats the 59. And so you're basically going to say that this run is technically, in a lot of ways, not as good as the 59.
Yes. So just watch it here. See, yeah, he gets the mauler from this scatter here. Now, he's not stopping at doors and everything. Now, and you'll notice at the very end of the run, he doesn't do the crazy shot at the end. So he'll run into the end and shoot the king in a sort of more of a safe way. And I guess he could afford to do that because he only needed a 58, which was relatively easy because he's not losing so much time. Because you see how when he opens the doors, he just continues to keep his speed. So in Perfect Dark, stopping full speed loses a lot. I think it's more than GoldenEye. So he might lose half a second every time he stops running. So Paragon, there was multiple doors there where he just opened it and stopped running and waited for the door to open, which was pretty common back then. I did that a lot as well. So some runners felt like they just wanted to run against the door, but a lot of runners, they just stopped. So he just lost tons of time like that, and Expert Gamer didn't do that, so he felt like he wanted to run against the door, not because he knew it was faster, just because some people did. So his run overall was slower than 59, but yes, it ended up faster because of that. But every like things weren't done technically as well as Paragon.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see with the doors, like, I remember back in the day before even I knew about it, because it wasn't really widely known until like 2007, 2008, I would say. But it's like, you kind of, if you feel like you open the door and step back, you kind of have time to like really get through the opening more cleanly. And I think that's kind of the mentality of it.
It's like real life, man. It's like using momentum to get through. See, in real life, momentum is a thing. But in these games, I don't think momentum is really a thing. It's all just about speed. Now, your speed still remains constant even though you're running up against the door. So in real life, it seems like sort of, what's the word? Intuitive to sort of use momentum to get through, but it's not really how these games work. So you just want to keep your running speed up against the door instead of sort of standing back.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of trying to wonder, like, this run, if it was clearly slower, the last shot was like 2 seconds slower than Paragon's last shot. Why, like, what they obviously maybe thought, I wonder why this one's 58 and that one's 59. Like, it wouldn't have made sense to them, They wouldn't have known
it wouldn't have made sense.
the reason that this run is faster. And I kind of wonder what they were thinking about it at the time. It's kind of interesting.
I don't many people really thought about much. Honestly, back then, it really was more feel, and you play by feel, and you don't. I mean, there's some analysis that goes into it as far as strategies, but these sort of minute details really weren't considered back then.
Yeah,
like they are now. Like now, you'd be like, you can save 0.2 here, save 0.3 there. Back then, it wasn't really like that. It was like, this strat's faster than this strat. And that's pretty much the depth of how people looked at it.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, and that's obviously why I say to a lot of people when they are talking about optimizing games that just came out a year ago, it's like, give it some time, guys. Things will come around. Now, Expert Gamer was all these guys back then were technical masters in some field or another. Guys designing the rankings, recording videos with audio. Expert was the master of the forums. He was the one who created the first message boards for the Elite community in July 2000. And he was a good player. He was like a top 5 player most of his career, probably.
Yeah, he stayed between 2nd and 5th. So he was really, really good. Never quite made it to champion status for whatever reason. Maybe it was because he didn't play as much. Could have been just because he just wasn't naturally as good. He may have used 1.1. I feel like. I'm not entirely sure about that, but I feel like that may be the case. Now, back then they didn't know about. I forget exactly when it was found out that 1.2 was better than 1.1. Actually, just note that I think Snapdragon was actually the person who first figured out that 1.2 was faster than 1.1.
Yeah. And that, of course, is the control style where you use the C buttons to strafe instead of the stick, and because it's it's like a digital input as opposed to analog inputs, you're less likely to not be holding full speed at any point.
Well, if you're using the stick to move and turn, when you turn, you're going to sacrifice movement, and when you run, you sacrifice turning. So there's always going to be a sacrifice when you use a stick. But yeah, he created the easy boards in July of 2000. Which is what we used for many years.
Yeah, until they switched over to Yuku, and I mean, message boards went through a whole crazy. That's a wild story unto itself. But those message boards, of course, were a good time, and very necessary for the growth of the community back then, for sure. Now here's a 5060 on July 2001, so a year after he made the message boards. What's the improvement on his 56? What made it better than 58 even,
Yeah, it's hard to really see this one about why it's faster. I think it's just subtle differences all around. So we'll see what he does here. So now, even though he's hunting for a mauler, he's still more sort of YOLO. He's like, it's Here he stops.
Yeah, that was like if he was able to pick up a Mauler earlier, that could have saved maybe 1 or 2 seconds, right?
Yeah. But he's sort of, I'll turn this corner, I'll shoot. If it's not there, it's not there. Whereas previously people would really, really hope or really lose more time hunting for a Mauler. So this is more YOLO Mauler collection. He had the door open on the way to the first king there, as you can see. And everything else is just sort of a lot cleaner.
Yeah, it looks like maybe a slightly faster last king shot. Yeah, so it's like he's strafing through the early parts of the level, doesn't see any Skedar. He could have got the Mauler there, and that would even have saved maybe 2 more seconds than if he had to wait and got it here. But that door is open. I think we're talking about the doors more in a couple runs, but they can be very slow to open, and so obviously if a Skedar opens them for you, you're in better shape.
And the Skedar on the way to the first king sort of appear at random locations. Sometimes they're in just like the perfect spot where you could sort of kill them and get a Mauler as you're strafing. Sometimes if you turn a corner and they're right in front of your face, obviously you don't have enough time, because the way the Phoenix works is you shoot the Phoenix into their head and it blows up, sort of creates an explosion. And that explosion takes some time to kill them. So if you turn a corner and they're right there, you don't have enough time for the explosion to really kill them before you get the weapon. So ideally, you turn a corner and they're further down the hallway, so you can shoot them, give that time to really sink in, and then collect it as you strafe past.
Yeah, it kind of needs like 1 or 2 pulses of an explosion to game end the Skedar, as we like to say. Yeah. Okay. So he got this from July 2001. Is there anything else to add before we get to March 2002?
Not really. You pretty much covered it. Obviously, the run's not perfect. You can still see obvious things that can be improved.
Yeah, I mean, I could see right away that he lost either 1 or 2 seconds on that slower Mauler pickup and Skedar kill, and then the last king shot he ran all the way in. Compared to Paragon's last king shot, that's another 1 second at least, right? So 54, 53 got to be possible even back then in 2001. So we get to 2002.
Yes.
And Expert makes kind of a strange post, I would say. What do you think about this post?
Oh, it's strange.
Old times never posted. And he posts a defense Agent 54, Skedar perfect.
I mean, they're world records, these first 2, but they're not mind-blowing,
So he posts
just world records for the time.
He posts 3 world records. 2 of them are all right, and then War Perfect Agent 54. He had 56 untied, so this is now a 3-second untied at least.
Yeah,
and it is a little bit.
No questions asked. By the way, yeah, he claimed this and he posted it without proof, so no video.
Yes,
and no questions asked.
And it kind of seems like, I mean, back then, of course, we know a lot of people weren't always recording. In fact, it was maybe even more rare to record than not record. And of course, he was one of these founding fathers of the community. He had a lot of clout and respect, and it was normal for people to claim times without proof. This time, though, it was a 3-second untied, which is really, really good. And on top of that, yeah, the way he posted it, like, it's almost as if he doesn't care. It's...
Yeah, I'm not really 100% sure about why that is. Because War Perfect Agent 54 is not a time that you should not care about. It's kind of really bizarre. It's how blasé he's trying to make it seem. It's just, I can't really determine the exact logic. If it is real, then like, why is it meh? And why would you go for it? Because it's such an insane time. Why would you go for it and not post it when you got it? It just doesn't seem to make sense in any way. I kind of think about it.
It's like one of the best records in the game, probably, and he's like, look at, and not only that, he's claiming that it's an old time. He got it like a few weeks ago, and he just hadn't gotten around to posting it, and he's kind of like, whatever. Yeah, certainly strange. And then about a month later, he posts another See, this one's interesting because, he's about to drop out of 5th place. And as a result, he's like, oh, here are a couple more old times that I got since January. And
yeah, so the previous post was in March.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I've old times I've received I've gotten since January. He's already unhoarded in March. So what did he unhoard a few times, but not unhoard these other ones? And now he's unhoarding a second batch? Like, that kind of doesn't really make sense to me. What's going on?
And he's kind of alluding to it too, like, oh, are there more records where that came from? Yeah. Look, I mean,
He decided if he has more PB.
like, looking back at it now, it's very obvious to us that it's like comes across as suspicious. But at the time, when this was like, in a way, kind of the norm to claim times without a video, it passed along. And so his 3-second untied War Perfect Agent 54 went up on the rankings.
Yeah, I want to point out there was this champion around this time, Dark Avenger. And Dark Avenger has hardly any proven times. But he was champion. That's how insane it was back then.
Yeah, no, I remember that as well. I remember us seeing old threads about Dark Avenger, and 0 times ever proven. And it's like, it is interesting because in a lot of ways it's like, did he play the game at all? Probably. He probably played. But yeah, I mean, that's just the nature of looking at history way back in the day. So I guess this 54 was amazing, right? It was not easy to tie by anyone by any means. But of course, someone did eventually tie it.
Yeah, that was me.
Yep. So let's watch. Let's watch.
So the 54, this claim was untied for over 2 years.
Hard to believe.
Yeah.
No, I know you have what do you call it? You have like music in the background here, but it's like there's I'll have to mute it for YouTube anyway, so I just mute the run. Like you say, videos didn't have audio back then.
Yes.
So you just threw any fun track over it. And
yes.
Yeah. So I mean, how did you get? Okay, I saw right there.
Yeah, I had a door open there. See, 2004 was light years ahead of 2002. So when I came in, I sort of started to come in, and I became champion in 2002. But me sort of started to play Perfect Dark coincided with Boss coming into the GoldenEye Elite. There was definitely a pre-2002 era, and then sort of a post-2002 era where things really, if you have a look at the world records, after 2002, GoldenEye as well, world records really started to improve and become a lot more optimized. This 54 is 2 years after that. I mean, we are really, if you have a look at my strafing, the way I'm doing everything, it's just better. Not because I'm better, but just because, our awareness and everything was just so much more advanced at this point. But the lines are tighter, the corners are tighter, more YOLO. I did get the door open on the way back from this first skater kill there, which is a high luck thing. So I'll explain this first door here. On the way to the first getter, this door can be closed, and most of the time it will be closed. It's open if you sort of turn the corner before that door, and a skater has positioned himself just in front of that door so he can open it for you. That's not really a common thing. So we basically sort of grind out runs now until that first door is open, and then the door open on the way back is even more rare. And it's another luck factor. So most runs, you'll get that door shut on the way back. On this run, I got it open on the way back. Did I say most of the time it would be closed on the way back? This time I got it open.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of you're just basically hoping that the Skedar who spawn sort of randomly are going to spawn in the right place at the right time to open the door to get to you. And they did on this run.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
played it very safe. Very safe.
Good.
I mean, it's an insane run, man. It's hard to get a crazy end, and you survive so rarely. So to get a run where you get an open door on the way back from the first king, you've survived to actually have a shot on the king, man. I had to play that save. I already grinded this for like 2 weeks. It was really not a pleasant experience. You know, back then there was no Twitch or whatever. I specifically remember that this time going for it was unpleasant. It was really, really, really sucked to play for this. So I had a good run and I just went for a super, super safe shot there at the end.
Yeah, I'm sure many of us have gone through that onerous grind where it's like you just want to be done with it. You were blessed with this run with the good door luck. And yeah, I mean, of course, again, if you pulled off the Paragon style last shot, you know, maybe it could have been 53, maybe 52, which is insane. But again, no one had ever tied Experts 54. It kind of had begun to gain the status as a legendary record. And you're like, well, I got my shot. Got to take it. And there it is.
I was not really... I was never happy with this because of that slow end. But it's not... It's... Who's gonna... I mean, there's no way I was going to play more of War Habitation. It's just so hard to get anything. So I just decided to quit there. That was fine for me at the time.
Yeah, and again, back then, it's not like your grinds are shared on Twitch with people cheering for you at the Untied. It's like, all right, I tied the record. It's a good record. Let's leave it at that. And okay, that was March 04. We're moving ahead to now July 05, and this guy was at his peak. I would say this is Boss, having his time on War Perfect Agent.
Yeah, he was at his peak in GoldenEye, I think, in 2005, right?
Like 04, I think 05 is kind of when he switched to Perfect Dark and kind of peaked there.
I mean, everyone knows Bossar was insane at GoldenEye. He started hitting Perfect Dark hard in 2005.
And that 05 is when he became the dual champion.
Yeah.
No, I noticed he had a really clean, we'll watch it again, really clean Mauler pickup, but both those doors are closed. So that's probably more than a full second loss on those two doors.
Which two doors? There's only one real door that could be... Okay, we'll have to go back.
Yeah.
Which two doors are we going to?
I'm assuming he's going to YOLO this last shot here.
In theory, he'd have to.
That looked pretty damn good. So
yeah, I mean, if you compare side by side that end with my end, it's so much of a difference.
Yeah, it would be kind of cool to compare them and see see how much time is like pulled forward and pulled back. You know,
it's 1.5 seconds. That shot was quicker than my 54.
You know, I see a comment in chat from P says, "Do you have to be champ in both games simultaneously to be dual champ?" Yes, and it's only happened 3 times: Ace, Boss, and Disco.
Disco, Boss, Ace.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it.
They may be the only ones. Yeah. Imagine if they weren't and we didn't remember who it was. No, I'm pretty sure it's just.
I'm pretty sure. Could be Karl in GoldenEye one day, maybe. So yeah, I mean, one thing I definitely can notice right off the bat, and I'm not a very experienced War player at all, but shoots that Skedar. That's really fast Mauler pickup. Now that
he had that door closed.
Yes, that and on the way back.
Okay, yeah.
So
I had the door open on the way there and back, so he has 2 extra closed doors.
Yeah, and you can see him really fussing to get through that door cleanly. But that's what, 2 seconds lost in those 2 doors?
At least, yeah.
Insane. And then he just...
Now, it has to be noted, though, okay? You're going to get tons of runs where those doors are closed. That's probably why, 9 times out of 10, the first door is going to be closed. Out of the runs that could go after that first door, 9 times out of 10, the second door is going to be closed on the way back. Okay, so you're playing out 90 runs are going to have those doors closed. So he has tons of runs where he's slower, but he can YOLO the end. My 54 was like the 1 out of 100 where you get through the first door cleanly and get through the second door cleanly. So if I were to actually use the same end strat, there's no way I'm even completing a run. Because, most of the time you're going to miss that third king. So he probably had 100. He probably, I don't know how many runs, but he probably had a lot. Boss said he played quite a while for 54. I think it might have been a few weeks as well. So obviously he's playing out runs with the door shut. So he's probably had many runs that got to the end, and he just missed that third shot. So it's probably that one out of 1,000 YOLO shot that he had there at the end.
Yeah, so I was going to say there's kind of a difference in pressure as well. It's like on Boss's run, it's like this is your standard run this level. He played it really well, cleanly. All the shots were good. YOLO'd the ending, got 54. On your 54, it's like that's the miracle run. There's a lot more pressure, and so you want to play it safe. And the end result happens to be the same time. So kind of two different, ways to get to the record. Of course, this still leads the question. I mean, it's like obviously lower is still possible, and we know Expert was probably capable of getting a 54.
Yeah, as we were talking about yesterday, I was basically saying this level isn't necessarily all about the speed, because the speed itself isn't that amazing. What is actually amazing is combining the speed with living. I mean, this level is all about survival. You die every run. It's not like you're getting runs to the end and they're slow and you're making mistakes. You are literally dying every single run. So it's like saying, yeah, I could win the lottery. I have the ability to, but saying I won the lottery, the odds of that actually happening is so low.
Yeah, no.
So it's the luck is so crazy that, yeah, anyone could probably get 54. Any of the top players anyway. But it's not about can you do it? It's about actually achieving it and making it happen, which is everything on this level.
Yeah, and I guess the way when you put it that way, it is kind of like, okay, so not only is it super rare for the door to have two open doors, but it's even maybe more rare to live at all to the final boss. So yeah, that kind of puts into perspective. So
you can see that we've got sort of pieces of everything in different runs, but no one's sort of put all the pieces together in a single run yet.
Okay, so the next run I'm going to show is a year later, 2006, from a gentleman who went by the name DKK5. We'll watch the run first, then we'll talk a bit about him. And just, I haven't really paid attention to this run, so I don't know necessarily what to look for or why it's the 54 in comparison to the others.
It's standard-ish. I think he had the door open on the way to the first getter, and the door closed on the way back, which is pretty standard for most runs.
Good Mauler pickup, good door open.
Doors open on the way there.
Yeah, the thing with these Skedar is they like. He had both doors open.
Yeah, he had that second door open on the way back. He didn't get through there very cleanly though, so he didn't really gain that full time.
I was gonna say you can see how much damage the Skedar are doing, and when you're close to them and they slash you, it does like 30% damage or something crazy. And there's another
YOLO.
Pretty heavily YOLO'd shot, 54.
Yeah, that last shot was really insane.
Was it more insane than Boss's 54? Or
yeah, because he seemed to have this technique where he pushed himself up against the wall and just sort of instantly shot as he sort of went out, you know? The reason he did that was because he starts by positioning himself up against the wall flat and then sort of going out and shooting instantly. That's to avoid auto-aim being picked up on those scatters, because we play with auto-aim. So if you sort of run out there and don't shoot immediately, the auto-aim is going to go onto one of those scatters there and you can't shoot the third king.
I mean, the way it looks like to me here is like, yeah, he literally shoots on the first frame he could. And if he waited 2 or 3 more frames, the auto-aim would have locked on this closer Skedar and missed the shot. So it's like a frame-perfect last king shot, which is pretty damn good. Now, the thing with DK, and I think this might explain why the run was 54, despite the insane ending and both doors being open. He was one of the first guys who was kind of a specialist on a level. he was never that highly ranked. War was his level. He tied the record on Agent. He had a good record on Secret Agent, and he tied the record on Perfect Agent. And pretty much the only Perfect Dark level he played was War. And this isn't that uncommon today. You see some people in either game who maybe at the beginning of their career or overall they just focus on one level. A guy like Ogran comes to mind in GoldenEye on Streets, or Grav on Runway as well. And it's like
Luke Pettit on Frigate.
Pettit on Frigate, of course. That's a good one. But DK we call him DK, DKK5, David K. He was one of the first specialists. So I'm kind of imagining that perhaps his overall skill in the game was a little bit lower than that of you or Boss, who were better at the game all round. So the strafing of DK was a little bit less precise. So he might have lost like tenths that way. And so his, doors being open here and YOLO'd last shot are what made it 54, despite being a little bit less clean overall. That's my best kind of analysis on it.
Well, I think his strafing was actually pretty good. He got stuck there on the way on that door. But we'll mention his doors are a bit sticky. Okay, so if we go back to that door, if we go back to the door that he was just on, there's a couple of doors in this level that their opening speed is random. So they can actually open and get stuck, or they can open slowly. So here it's opening, but it's a bit slow.
Okay.
And not this door. This door is normally open on most runs. This next door coming up, you'll see it's also slow.
Yeah.
So see how one side sort of stops? So instead of both sort of opening, one side stops and it's just the other side opening, so he has to sort of wait a bit longer to get through. So stuff like that, it loses a couple tenths here and a couple of tenths there, and they kind of add up. And yeah, he didn't get through the door on the way back from the scatter that cleanly, even though it was open.
Yeah, so it wasn't a fully perfect open comeback door. Yeah, no, I see that. Yeah, now when these doors open, because I remember playing it, and it's like sometimes the door opens just a tiny crack, and then it feels like you have to press B again to like open it a second time.
You do.
Yeah, so it's like
stop.
Yeah, so that's something that's really hard to interpret on a speed run, and again another piece of why it's so hard to get a run that comes together as cleanly as all these runs we've shown are. These doors are also a random element as well. I like, DK is not a guy who's really going to come up in any other Speedlore because this was his level. But I want to say he was an interesting character for sure. He would kind of hang out. The elite at the time was kind of polarized between the kind of old, we call them the dinosaurs, the guys who you saw early on who were still hanging around, Endgamer and his kind of friends, the admin of the site, who weren't playing much anymore now that it's 2006, and the guys who were actively playing at the time, like Ace and me and Clemens and so on. But DK was friends with the Endgamer group, but he was kind of a good bridge between everyone. Everyone liked him. Everyone got along with him really well. I ended up meeting him. He actually sent me the first capture card I used to stream. Did you know that? He had a capture card that only worked on Windows XP. And in 2012, he had no use for it. So he mailed it to me, and that's the first one I started streaming with until about 2014. When I got the GV USB 2, the kind of standard that everyone uses now. And it's like, he was a really good dude. I met him in person when he came to my neck of the woods for a conference or something, and we hung out. We had a good time. We went downtown to the Wayne Gretzky's a sports bar, and he had a poutine there. And it was funny because he was from like Florida, yet he was a huge ice hockey fan, which is so rare. A huge Tampa Bay Lightning fan of all teams to be a fan of, and so we would often talk about hockey in our chat rooms and whatnot back then. And it was funny because he would like buy into the $200 package at all the games for the year, so he could watch all of his teams and all the other teams. And so a lot of the game feeds would be like these obscure Canadian sports channels. And he knew all like the weird references, like the kind of commercials they would often promote, and like for these, weird Canadian TV shows. And and kind of obscure Canadiana, and it was really funny having a guy from Florida know all about that kind of stuff. So a good dude, and he got a cool run here. War Perfect Agent 54. So there's David K5 in a nutshell for you. And yeah, no, I just have his there's his times page for the record, February 4, 2006. Now his reign as the war master, the war specialist, sadly would come to an end. It would. I believe he said himself that if his dream was to get War Perfect Agent 53. He wanted 53. He said, if anyone gets it before me, I'm going to retire from Perfect Dark speedrunning. Well, wouldn't you know it, in December 2007, we all know Perfect Ace came along and destroyed everything anyone had ever come to know and love. And you got this speedrun.
Yeah, and you'll notice immediately something different here at the beginning.
Yeah, he was shooting the roof with these explosions, I guess to self-boost himself. He got a very clean Mauler pickup.
Yeah, we'll watch the run and then I'll explain the strat, the new strat. Door open on the way back. So it's door open on the way to the first king and door open on the way back. And of course, Ace strafing well, really knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
So the run is absolutely insane.
Ooh.
But yeah, the end, he obviously wasn't going for the YOLO shot, because if he was going for the YOLO shot, he would have shot and missed because there were a bunch of scatter in the way. But it was even worse because he was trying to just sort of do a safe shot and go out there, but there was just another scatter blocking his path. So the end was really slow. But it didn't seem to matter because the rest of the run was just so crazy. He kind of had, you could almost say, ideal. Everything else was ideal in this run, except for the end.
I would say so, yeah. So, yeah, one of the first things you'll notice is this look up and self-boost off the roof. On Agent, people have been self-boosting on the ground for a few years now, but that would kill you on Perfect Agent, where the health is lower.
I think it was 2002 we'd been boosting off the ground. So on Agent, you can just look down. Same on Agent in GoldenEye as well. You can look down and self-boost, because explosions do some damage, but it's not that bad. Yeah, so on Agent, we really abuse the self-boost by looking down. On Perfect Agent, you can't do that because you just die. So since 2002 to 2007, no one was doing any self-boosts on Perfect Agent. I asked Boss and Ace who came up with this self-boosting off the ceiling strategy. They don't know. I think Ace says, even though Ace used it first, he doesn't really know where it came about. He said maybe DK, David K5. I think maybe he came up with it. He might have been going for 53 using this self-boosting strategy. Couldn't get it, but as soon as Ace came along, used the strategy, he was able to get 53 with it.
I think that's probably what ended up happening. DK was probably came up with that. And of course, Ace, the master he is, came along. This is also the legendary December 2007, where he had just been sent an NTSC console by Carathorn and Red Bull. And he got 20 untied records in the month of December. So this
insane.
This is
also one of those insane records that he got in that December.
Well,
crazy record was in December 2007.
Yes.
A lot.
I mean, when you get 20 untieds, and many of them lasted for a long time. Of course, his Mayan SOS one lasted 8 years. This one, though, lasted more than 4 years, we'll go ahead and say. More than 4 years untied. Pretty amazing. And DK did retire from Perfect Dark speedrunning after this. Not forever. He did eventually come back in the kind of the Twitch era when that reinvigorated a lot of people. But for the next 5-6 years, he was effectively retired from the game. So, I guess we're skipping now all the way ahead to January 2012. And who else but our pal, Big Boss Man, got this run.
Yeah, Boss came back pretty hard in 2012, I think.
And this is even before like Twitch streaming. This is like January 2012, before a lot of people were doing that.
Boss got a few really good times in 2012 in PD. He also got a couple of really good GoldenEye times. Like one of them was Runway 22, Secret Agent. So 2012 he started coming back pretty hard, I think.
I know it's a little stuck on a scatter there, not a huge deal.
So now, when you're looking at this level, Ace's run was so good. He was 53 with a slow end. He had the doors open, you know, on the way to and from the first king. Boss had a little stuck there, and door wasn't open on the way back, okay? So the time save has to come from somewhere. And you can kind of guess where that time save is going to come, because it has to come from somewhere. So here is Paul. He's turning off auto aim. And then he just pause buffers to make sure he's aimed on the king and then shoots him from there. So, in years previous with auto aim, that shot is completely YOLO. Like David had DK had to do. We had to sort of first frame shot blind from around the corner. That was a 1 in 100 shot. Now Boss has just really made it easier by just turning off auto aim and just pausing to make sure you're on there, and then you can shoot it. So it's made the end a lot safer to do quickly.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, it's kind of interesting because I remember pause buffering. I guess we kind of did in Perfect Dark for a long time, but I remember like it really becoming popularized from Ocarina of Time. And again, this is early 2012, so those runs weren't that popular yet. So I wonder what inspired Boss to do that. I mean, it's
It's
pause
just buffering slowly has been coming in since I'm not sure exactly. I think we didn't use pause buffering for a long time. I know people I remember way back in the day in the early 2000s, Matt Cook, otherwise known as Juggernaut J3, he used to pause buffer a lot, but it was for the wrong reasons. I mean, you should only ever pause buffer when you don't have to strafe anywhere, we don't have to move. Because if you pause, you lose all your speed. So the only places where pause buffering is really relevant is if you don't have to run anywhere. But some people back in the day used to pause buffer when they did have to move. But I think they didn't realize, again, you lost full speed. So pause buffering really wasn't used in the mid 2000s, and I don't know exactly when it started coming in. It could have been from people seeing people do it in other games, but yeah, in 2012 you can see here an example of it being used, and I didn't really even notice it sort of coming in, but since then it had a lot of pause buffering has really started to come into a lot of levels. And people are really starting to abuse it more and more and more as time goes on.
And some people,
it's not like it's free. It's not like it's free if you don't have to move. Like in this case, you just have to stand there and aim. That's fine. That's when pause buffering is kind of ideal. If you have to strafe anywhere or move, then it's really not. So most of the time you can't use it, but in certain scenarios, it's really, really useful.
Yeah, no, exactly. You can't obviously use it for every single trick in the game, but that when you're kind of stopped anyways, you just have to line up the shot. It's kind of the perfect scenario for it.
The end. The end is not free. Okay, so we've been seeing a lot of runs here where the end was successful, obviously, because they're world records. You don't get to see all the unsuccessful runs. But we'll have a look at what is normally the case. And normally you get to the end, either the doors aren't open or there's a bunch of scatter in the way and you can't make the shot. So if you already moved on to this example run?
Yeah, I'll even show the title is, War Perfect Agent blown 51 pace. Let's see 51. Let's see what happens here. There's a really clean Mauler pickup. I'm expecting all the doors open, yeah.
Perfect door. Door wide open. Everything's really, really good. This is kind of like ideal.
Yeah.
Ideal run.
It's like the theory run.
Yeah. So this is normally what's happened. The door is hardly open. Scatter in the way. Yeah. So there's nothing you can do. You can't outskill that, which is just the nature of the end. So your boss says it was 51. If you have a look, I'm not sure if it would have been 51. Okay, if you have a look at the timer there.
Let's say he shot there. He shot at 50.
50. Was it 50 point? What was it? 50 point what?
He shot at 50. He shot at 50.0. As far as I could tell. Yeah,
So it takes 2 seconds, like 2.1 seconds or something from the shot.
Oh, okay.
So that would have been 52. I think it would have been 52. I mean, maybe frame perfectly. It could have been 51 in theory, but I think realistically, that was probably a 52 pace run.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is that when it's not a world record claim, it's like, a failed pace claim. You can be a little bit more extravagant with your claim. Like, this was the most insane. This would have been a 10-second untied. I know myself, Ace, and Clemens have made plenty of claims like that over the years where, this run was unbelievable. It would have been a 2-second untied for sure. But it's like old fisherman stories, right? Certainly.
Well, I think there's something there to maybe 51 is possible, but I think I'd probably happy settling on it's probably 51 possibly, but I think generally it would have been a 52.
Mm-hmm.
Just because there's some human delay of is this shot gonna work? That a human response time would have made it 52.
What I'm thinking about on this run is like he could have shot now, right? And he pauses now. He realizes he doesn't have a shot.
You're always going to pause before you shoot.
Okay.
So that's your pause buffering. So you pause, you say, okay, where am I aiming? If you're aiming on the right spot, you shoot. If you have to adjust, you adjust. So he paused and then shot afterwards.
All right. And again, this run was done in 2012, the same time when he tied the 53. So he was playing that level hot at the time. Now we're going to show another run here. And this is a more modern run, but it kind of shows you how the level works out for a lot of people much of the time. This is
an alternate.
Yeah.
This IC run, is it?
This is IC Speedruns.
Okay.
He's a top 10 player. He's good.
Yeah. He's going to use a different strategy here. He's not doing any self-boost at the start. The reason why is this different strategy here doesn't require you to be super fast at the beginning. So he's going to stand here, and I'll just pause it here, and I'll explain what's going on.
Okay, yeah. He's pausing a bunch of times.
So the scatter have different spawn positions. So when you kill a scatter early on, it'll respawn somewhere around the scatter king before it comes to get you. So the scatter won't spawn where you're looking directly. So basically what he did was he killed a couple of scatter earlier on. Now he's looking at these spawn points here to make sure they can't spawn there, which causes them to spawn on top of the bridge above the scatter king. Now, this door up to the top right of the screen right now is normally locked, so you can't actually get through that door until you kill the scatter king. But he's gonna, because the scatter spawned up on the bridge there, he's gonna open it for you from the other side, so it allows you through without killing it. And now you can shoot the first king through the bridge there because his head is too big and it sort of pokes through.
I see. And this one is the strategy's like equally fast to the current strategy?
I don't think it's fast. No, it's not equally fast, no. Because you can't, your speed at the beginning is capped. So with the world record runs, we self-boost at the start and we're going really, really fast. So we end up faster. With this other strat, is sort of not going fast at the start because you're capped at how fast you can do the start, and it ends up being a little bit slower.
I see. But I mean, the thing is, I guess you guys will see, this is about a 54 pace run, so you could still get a really good time with this strategy. And here's what happens at the very end. Ooh.
So he gets shot and dies a couple of frames before the level ends, which can happen as well, because you got a bunch of scatter there. So the level ends, even though he died, it ended when it should have ended, so it definitely would have been a 54 if he didn't die. But yeah, you can just die at the end in a lot of runs as well.
And I mean, 54, as we've seen now, is like still a top tier time. Boss and Ace have 53. 54 matches experts record from back in the day. So 54 is really good, and even with a YOLO last shot, could have been 53.
Maybe. It would have been 53 with a YOLO, probably, yeah.
And unfortunately, he dies at the very, very end, and that is, I guess maybe not common, but it kind of shows you just how frequently you die on this level. It's, you know, I'm just looking at his time now. I don't think, he has 55. He's never been able to get revenge on that 54. So,
as I was saying before, it's speed's one thing. Yeah, he can get a run this fast, but to actually get a run where you get the speed and survive is the challenge here. So that's why, even though you can see, he's can obviously do faster. Why wouldn't he just improve his 55? Yeah, to actually put the hours in to get the time is such a task. So that's why he still has 55. It's just so hard to get a run and survive.
All right, now is the time in the lore where we look at some old forum threads. Isn't that everyone's favorite time? So we're going to look at a number, 5 or 6 threads. This first one I'm going to pull up is a thread that Endgamer ran in the year 2006. It's kind of funny in hindsight, the all-time elite awards, because we thought at that time the community had been around long enough where we could reflect on the history and award the best player ever, the best world record ever. Who would have imagined that 13 years later we're still talking about these sorts of things, right? It's kind of funny. But in this thread, they talk about how, there's nominations for the best Perfect Dark record ever. It's the best Perfect Dark Perfect Agent record. And War 54 is listed as a nominee, even though it was not proven. And this kind of goes to show just how much the record was just never not questioned. Like this was a fact that Expert had gotten this 54, even though it was never proven.
Yeah, it just it's a testament to how trustworthy people thought he was. I'm not saying he was not trustworthy or whatever, but I'm saying that without proof, you can just claim a time that people just take for granted back then. It's pretty insane. Yeah,
and again, nowadays it's like we run proof calls every month. Any times that were submitted that meet a certain threshold that don't have videos, they get proof called. People have like a month to post a video. Back then, it was like very occasional. It was kind of like on an as-needed basis. And so this is a thread from February 06 where Endgamer does a proof call. And he proof calls a bunch of Brazilian runners. Obviously, it's 2004. Good luck in Brazil getting your videos up, online, right? So all these guys are involved in that call. And then they would eventually submit their tapes and get proven. A number of them would, at least. And then he says, okay, there's some near calls, okay? These are times that aren't necessarily proof called, but we might think about proof calling in the future. And Experts 54 is... it's even beyond that. Look how Endgamer has it ranked. The near calls, the far calls, and suggestions. Maybe way down the line, in hundreds of years, we could proof call these times. And Experts War 54 is there.
Check out my list. I had a very healthy list of unproven times and the suggestions. See, even me, in 2004, I think I was playing without even recording for some of my times. Some of them I did, but for example, I had Matt Cook and Your Eliteness over my house. I think it would have been, I'm not sure if it was 2003 or 2004, but yeah, I got Rescue Agent, Rescue Secret Agent, Rescue Perfect Agent I think these reward records. A rescue secret special agent was an untied. I wasn't recording. I mean, I had Matt Cook and Your Eliteness sitting next to me watching me as I played. So I was like, who cares about recording? Back at those times, a lot of the time we just say, oh, I can't be bothered recording. Who really cares? So we didn't.
Yeah, having someone vouch for you was like adequate proof in many ways. And that's, again, why these times weren't, like, hard called on a proof call. Yeah, okay. And, so this is just a bit of a peek in the past. And then we're going to show kind of how attitudes changed in the future. So here's a proof call from December 2012. Thiradel, many will know him from, like, various Zelda communities. He was the proof moderator at the time. He called a bunch of times. And I'm in here like, oh, we should proof call Experts War 54. Just because a time is old and a ruling on it was done years ago shouldn't give it immunity from today's rankings. This December 2012 was just after the Henning situation. Certainly, if you haven't watched the Frigate Speedlore episode, the first one, that's where I go into depth there. But Henning was the person who was outed as having the most, dozens of spliced speedruns, the most egregious instance of this in Elite history, at least. And so this was a point where we were really kind of starting to get more sensitive about unproven or fake records on the rankings. And so I was kind of being, what about Experts 54, guys? Just because we accepted it years ago doesn't mean we have to accept it today. And that mood would kind of continue for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
This next thread, again, another thread I'm making, causing trouble. I believe what motivated this thread, I was wondering about it. Karl dug it up. April 10, 2014. You see on the board top, we have this day in Elite history and all the records that were set this day in Elite history. Probably on that day, Dan Berube claim of 53 was on the board top as, oh, he set this record back then. And so that motivated me to make this thread saying we should remove Berube's unproven Dan 53. Again, I go into that in 5 speedrunners who claimed records with no proof. And I go into Expert's story as well in that video, but yeah. Basically, my kind of idea is like, look, like, these times we accepted the claims years ago, but they have an impact on the people who are playing the game today. People are picking up the game, still trying to speedrun it, and they're still competing with these records that may have never been set. And at the very least, there should be some sort of standard to come to on what we want to say is acceptable or not to have on the rankings unproven.
And I'll throw in there, I'll bring up this whole idea of some people in defense of these old times say these old times were done long ago. It's done and dusted. Why are you trying to dig up these skeletons of the past and look at these things? Like, but from my perspective, I think as a community, we grow, learn, get wiser as we get more experience. Back then, the community was literally a child. It didn't know what it was doing. It didn't have the experience, the wisdom, or anything. Now we have a lot of experience. We've learned a lot of lessons through people lying, people cheating. And now with all of this education and knowledge, we can sort of look back into the past with a clearer vision and see things a lot better than we could when we were in the moment. So now that we can take the 20 years or almost 20 years of history, use that as a guiding light to sort of figure out what was right or wrong back then. So that's why we can look back and make decisions now, but based on old times. It's not because we just feel like going back and pestering these old times and we get a kick out of, deleting times that don't have proof, like we're on some sort of power trip. It's just literally because we've learned all these lessons and now we can sort of see things differently than we did back then, and that's why we want to sort of revisit these old times.
Yeah, very very well put, and perhaps put into words in a way that I couldn't do it when I was making these sorts of threads. Here's another one from only a few months later, a player's poll. Now, this one's quite a troll thread. Basically, anytime I would bring up, like, Berubes 53, Experts 54, these unproven times, the kind of, the old admin dinosaur guys would kind of shut it down. They'd not want to talk about it. They would not want to do exactly what Karl just described and look at it with cleaner eyes. So, as a way to kind of be sneaky and get around this discussion, I wanted to basically be like, should we remove Experts 54? But I didn't want it to seem like that was what I was asking. So I made this big poll of all these crazy questions of different types. Section 1, what's your favorite level, least favorite level, this kind of stuff. Section 2 about streaming, what do you like watching on Twitch? Section 3, should these times be removed or not? And Section 4, some kind of more, variety and maybe some inappropriate questions. But fun stuff like, if you had to choose members of the elite community as your best man, who would you choose? Which guys are good friends of you? Anyways, the whole reason I made this entire long poll, it's basically like social engineering, is to get people to answer specifically these, should Experts War 54 and Dan Berubes 53 be removed, without it being overtly about that. And if we are to scroll through, there are some funny answers in this thread. I'm sure I'll link it in the YouTube description. It's very split. And it seems mostly the newer players want to say to remove these unproven times, whereas the older players say the unproven times should remain. Here, Spec doesn't even answer that section. So it was still like a very kind of split thing, which is interesting to see.
I noticed that Spec didn't answer the questions there. He was probably thinking something's fishy about this.
I know it's again like these. It's kind of like good times on forums with a bit of that trolly edge, and there we go. Okay, so now we've moved months later. This is after AGDQ 2015. I had a conversation with Clark, the owner of the site, about Berubes 53, and this thread I've mentioned it before many times. I was shocked at 17,000 views on this forum thread. It's a firestorm, but basically again we go into, should this time be removed? Should it not be removed? And in this case, if you don't know Berubes 53, he was there who claimed to have tied Boss's damn Agent 53, a very historically significant record. So I said, look, if we remove this time, we kind of restore some of the historical significance to Boss's damn 53, the oldest record in the game. I think this is important, and the thread kind of went from there. And eventually, it was removed. At this point, we had established the Elite Council, and attitudes had changed enough. I think Clark's official stance was that, look, if this is a move the council wants to make and remove that time, you have my support. I think that was his opinion on the time. And that's what happened. Again, like Karl says, the added knowledge of the past and kind of changing attitudes are what led to this.
And it's interesting that this topic is about Dan 53, but multiple times Experts 54 gets brought up because a lot of people knew that the logical conclusion from Dan's 53 being removed is that if we were to stay consistent, Experts 54 is in danger of being removed as well. And a lot of people knew that. So are you going to show this other topic, remove Dan's 53 or we riot?
I did, yeah. Is there something particular in that thread that should be...
Well, in this topic here, this is another 1053 topic, but Expert actually shows up.
Yeah,
and
there you go.
He is very defensive about not going back and examining old times. and he's really getting sort of upset that we're going back and then looking at this time, because I think he knew as well that if people start going back to these old times, old unproven times, start removing them, he's in danger of having his 54 removed as well. So he actually, I mean, he hasn't really been too active in the community for a lot of years, but he shows up here in this topic trying to defend Dan's 53.
Yeah, and that's what I was looking for in the other thread, is that it seems to have happened when these conversations get brought up, that these guys, even if they've been absent for 10 years, will resurface and throw in their 2 cents. Yeah, so eventually Barube's 53 did get removed at that time, and that was pretty much that, until I would say 2016. Is that the next logical place to take this?
Well, we'll go to the video.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to make sure. Okay, yeah, so 2016. I came back to Perfect Dark in mid-2016. And I wanted to become Perfect Dark champion again. I have no idea why. I think maybe I got, in March, I think, 2016, I got Streets 111.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sort of set something off in me where I was like, okay, I'm still relevant. Or I can still be relevant. Because, I was kind of relevant back in the early 2000s. And much later on in sort of 2012, I started playing GoldenEye a little bit again. But I thought, I'm washed up. And I thought, there's no way I could compete anymore. So I played GoldenEye a little bit, 2012, 2014, getting some okay times, but I didn't really go after the really good times. I didn't really push myself. But if for some reason I went after Streets 11 and I got that, and then I thought, okay, maybe I can still compete, and it set something off. And then I played a little bit of Perfect Dark, and I got like a 6-second untied on Investigation Special Agent in like April or something. And I was like, okay, there might be something here where maybe if I actually applied myself, I could come back and do something really great. So I think then I decided, okay, I'm going to go for Perfect Dark Champion, which was pretty crazy because I was like 10th. I'd moved all the way down to the 10th at this time. I was just grinding a lot of Perfect Dark from this point on. So I think I eventually got to War, and then I got this run in August.
And I was going to say, you probably had, again, the record, 53 seconds by Ace and Boss. Ace in 2007, Boss in 2012. It's now 2016. So this shows how hard it is to, that's a good record. We know how good Ace and Boss are. No one's tied the record. But now Karl...
Yeah, the 53 is now 9 years old.
Mm-hmm. And
Karl... I still had 54.
Yep. Yeah. So let's watch the run.
So here I sort of hunted for a mauler, but there was none. It's not a huge deal. It's not a huge deal. But yeah, door open on the way back. Really, really lucky. I think even that was lucky. Sometimes you shoot those scatter and they don't die. I was actually really lucky to, like that. See, I shot that one and didn't die. I was lucky to shoot that scatter and actually get through that door. Force one for so many scatter here, it's crazy. Yeah, this is absolutely insane. This end is probably the luckiest thing that's ever happened to me running Perfect Dark. It's absolutely insane. It's lucky because well, a couple of reasons. First of all, I couldn't even see the king, so I was just guessing where he was.
Yeah, I'm gonna say you have no shot here. Like, there's no shot at the king.
Yeah, there's no shot. And then I pause, unpause, there's no shot. I pause again, I've got this scatter in my face. But I realize, okay, I have to take a shot, man. And there's no room to move. So I just YOLO this shot, even though when I was paused, there was no shot. Somehow, magically, there's a shot, and I am aimed on the king. Pretty crazy. Okay, now the next crazy thing is, look these scatters right in my face here. I swear to God, 99 out of 100 times, you should get slapped and killed here. Because, like, as soon as you get close to a scatter, they slap you. And if they slap you, you're dead.
You're dead?
Insane. You're dead.
I thought it was like a 30 or 50% health, but it's like 100%.
Full health, you get slapped, you're dead.
Okay.
So...
yeah, you're in this mess.
Not getting slapped. I think I got super lucky. Maybe they had a shot animation and a long... I have no idea, man. I think this other scatter right behind the other scatter was trying to kill me, but the scatter right here was blocking him. And then I really made a quick decision to sort of warp, switch weapons to sort of get out of there. I think that scatter was literally turning to slap me. And I warped through them because I switched weapons. So it's just absolutely insane, man. Absolutely insane.
That is really insane. And yeah, so now we've put pretty much everything to full knowledge. Boosting off the ceiling. Your Mauler pickup was pretty clean, all things considered.
Yeah, I might just pause it for a sec.
Yep.
There's actually this new strategy which came out that in the past, because scatter do take 2 shots to kill, we have it set on explosive right now. So people would just shoot 2 explosive shells. But the problem with that is they would shoot the second one and it would still be exploding by the time we got to the scatter. So we would sort of get damaged and back boosted by the explosion. So what you do here is you do the first shot explosive, then the second shot you press B, so it does the other function, which is just a normal standard shot. So that really, really helps out a lot on this one.
You avoid a bit of an explosion back boost.
Yeah, so you don't do 2 explosive shots. You do first explosive, then the second one a primary shot, and it's a long shot.
The door was open both times.
Mm-hmm. Really, really lucky.
This door was also cleanly open, and everything else was just worked. This run just worked out. I mean, again, of course, I think we can agree that if you had a DK style shot here, it could have been 51.
Let's have a look. Yeah, possibly, I think. I mean, yeah. But I think, honestly, may as well buy a Powerball ticket because the odds of getting a super, super lucky run with all the doors open and everything, and that first frame Scatter King shot, I think that just won't happen. I'd be very surprised if that happens. I think I could see 51 happening with just a really, really good run with similar end to what Boss got on his 53. That was a really nice end. But yeah, you're starting to get some seriously low odds on everything sort of happening. Seriously, seriously low odds. I mean, if you 52 is already a pretty good record. If you have to sort of grind the level for all these open doors, it's going to be an absolute nightmare. An absolute nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can say the story isn't quite over yet, but if we look at the war rankings today, there they are. 53, 53, 52. That's how it stands. So that is still the untied record 2.5 years later. But there is one more part of the story to get to. And that is after Karl got the 52, he came to a realization of really just how absolutely insane the expert claim of 54 seconds is. And Karl made this thread the case for backrolling expert gamers War 54. Do you just want to go through what your points were in this case?
Yeah, I'll quickly go through the points. So the first point is, if you look at the war ranks, I mean, you may not need to look at it a second. Can we just spoiler alert?
Yeah.
Can we spoil before we go back to the ranks?
Well, yeah.
Okay, so if you have a look at the time between Special Agent and Perfect Agent, Perfect Agent is about 8 seconds slower than Special Agent because it takes 8 seconds to go from the second king to the third king. So if you do eventually look at the ranks, you'll see almost universally everyone has 8 seconds slower on Perfect Agent than they do on Special Agent. Now, when Expert claimed War 54, when he claimed War 54, he had 49 seconds on Special Agent. So his Perfect Agent time was 5 seconds slower than his Special Agent time. But everyone else, their Perfect Agent time was 8 seconds slower than Special Agent. So that didn't really make sense. And when he went back and played Special Agent later in the year, after getting 54, he only ended up with a 48. So even after getting 54, which is, it's harder to survive Perfect Agent and get a run. When he came back to Special Agent, he only got a 48, which is 6 seconds faster, which is still 2 seconds quicker, the difference, than everyone else. So it really didn't seem to make sense. And 54 was set in 2002. When I made this post 14 years later, before I got 52, the world record had only been improved by 1 second. And there was only one other time on the ranks that had only been improved by 1 second, which was Defection Agent 6 seconds, which went from 6 seconds to 5 seconds. Every other time on the ranks have been improved by much more than 1 second. Even short levels like Chicago Agent, when the world record was 16 seconds, that had only been improved to 14 seconds. And that's a 16 or 14 second level. So everything else had been improved so much except for this wartime, which was just still insane, even 14 years later, which was just crazy. And I also compared his 54 to all of his other times. 54 was just much stronger than Expert Gamer's other times in comparison. Like I mentioned, he got in those world record posts, he had 54 combined with these two other average times. It's just sort of crazy, the difference there. They're the main things. And also I brought up the point of War 54 for back then was a massive time that you would have had to grind so long. Like when I got 54 in 2004, much later, that was a 2-week grind. So why are we grinding for this crazy time and not recording? When if you have a look at his times back from 2000 and 2001, he had all these videos. And it's very interesting how in the end of 2000, up until September of 2001, he had recorded most of his times. Then he has a break. Then he comes back in 2002 claiming these world records with no proof. And he hadn't proven anything since September of 2001. So very, very, very interesting.
Very suspect for sure. It basically seems like he had stopped playing. He was recording in the past. He had stopped playing, and then he just decided, I'm just going to make up some times and see how far I can take it. Right? That's what it.
Allegedly, allegedly, and
Yeah.
I'd say that's probably what happened. I'm not going to say definitively he lied, but I'd say, in my opinion, that's definitely probably the most likely scenario here. And our 53s and 52s that we got after 54 were with new strategies like the pause buffering at the end and the ceiling boosting. So that's all the runs that have beaten 54 use better strats. 54 for the strats of the time was insane. Absolutely insane.
And insane to a point where there were no equally insane records from that era. And so at the very, okay, is it possible he got it? I think we've all learned it's possible. But it's like, in the year 2016, I think we can also agree that it should be a proven time to be on the ranks at that level. And you do say that, top war players agree. It's too strong to remain unproven. I really like this.
At the start, I say this is not about, we're not out to say these times are fake. I'm about to just say that it can't be on the ranks unproven. That's all it boils down to. Whether or not it actually happened is kind of irrelevant. I think what's more relevant is that we need times like this to be proven, just to stay on the ranks.
I think this is a really good way you brought it up, because I think a lot of times when I would bring it up, it made me feel like I was attacking these players and saying, you lied about this time, it should be removed. Whereas the way you brought it up was, this is only a case where it should be back-rolled. Times have changed. A record this good needs proof. And you do acknowledge, this might raise suspicion about whether time was actually achieved, sure, but the main goal is just saying that it should be back-rolled. And it was only back-rolled to his record of 56. Yes. I mean, I guess I will say that this post was so convincing, and I guess maybe everyone had enough of it that they're like, okay, you know what? This is the last straw. Karl made a very good case. Experts 54 is back-rolled. The rankings now, again, 54 is back-rolled to 56. It's still a very strong time on the level. Extremely strong. So it's not like too much damage was done to his points at all, for sure. I was just, I do really like this quote here. At the risk of going full goose, this time is an insult to all the other war players. And just kind of, I would always be hyperbolic in these kind of posts. And maybe that's why the threads I made never got as far as the ones, as this one by Karl. And
it's kind of interesting how after that post, there was sort of like universal agreement that the time should be backrolled. So I don't know if something happened between 2014 where it was split, because even like Ace on the previous poll said he thinks 54 should remain on the ranks. But now he's like, it should be removed. There was no split anymore. So I don't know if it was just someone who was sort of had more expertise on the level giving a good case for it. That might have been it. I'm not sure if slowly people were just sort of realizing, or the community was changing, that they wanted more I don't know exactly what it was, but everyone seemed to agree that 54 should be backrolled. Like even Shadow says, basically, I'd be devil's advocate. And Expert Gamer did come back to comment.
Yeah, I know. He just says, like, well put together, and yeah, it was backrolled. He claims he was trying for years on and off to get it removed. I kind of come in with a dickish reply and say I kind of remember things differently, Expert. But he says, you know what? I understood the controversy around this time. Ultimately, I'm cool with what's happened here. Yeah, I mean, he says he tried to remove it himself and he wasn't allowed because some of the guys who administered the rankings or who were on the council at the time said no, we're going to leave the time up. I mean, look, it's all much ado about nothing, I would say, in that case, because the time was ultimately removed. And
it was nice that it was nice that he came back and said, I'm fine with this. I think all things considered, I think it was very respectful for him to have that response, as opposed to getting like angry or combative. I think it was a good close to the whole 54 story.
I think so, and I think that is the close to the story about War Perfect Agent Experts Claim, and hopefully that gives you some knowledge about all the crazy things that have happened on this level. War Perfect Agent. What a story. And now I think, we're going to open it up a bit and, take some question and answer. All right, so War Perfect Agent Q&A. And I see a really good question here from Dave Churchill, who says, for you, Karl, if you hadn't got 52 on that run, how much longer would you have grinded for?
How much longer if I hadn't gotten 52, like if I had gotten 53?
Yeah, how much longer would you... Yeah, I guess so, yeah. Would you have kept playing if you had 53?
If I got 53, I would have stopped for sure. Definitely would have been happy with 53.
Wow, and so 52, which is...
When I got 53, when I got 52, I was shocked.
Wow. Do you think it's one of your better untides in the game right now?
Sorry?
Do you think it's one of your better untides in Perfect Dark right now?
It's Well, again, it's this is kind of a high. It's more how do you sort of balance luck with skill? You know, how do you put value on either of those? The actual time, I would hate to have to get 52. So I mean, just for the fact that the level is terrible to play because you die so often, then I think it's pretty good. Yeah, just for that one thing alone. And all the luck and everything. Yeah, it's a very good time. Very good time.
Would you say of all your current Untides, 52 is the one that you would least want to go for again?
Probably the one I would least want to go for is Escape Agent 220. That also had a lot of luck as well.
Yeah, that one's. I know a good deal about Escape. That one's pretty crazy. Delta Force wants to know: are you gonna go for dual champion?
Definitely. Yeah, whenever I stream, I'm playing GoldenEye right now. I'm gonna keep streaming this year. So I'm definitely. It's one of my goals is to get dual champ for sure.
Insane. And are you gonna stream after this tonight or?
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Something could happen tonight. Has there ever been a feeling that getting rid of Skedar, would it reduce lag, or is it just trying to avoid them and stay alive? I think you know this for sure.
Yeah, getting rid of the Skedar isn't really possible. You're gonna like as I mentioned, you have to use the explosive shells. Most of the time, they're just too close for that to be any good. But also, you kill a scatter and it just spawns back immediately anyway. So there's always going to be the same amount of scatter in the level. So killing them doesn't really do anything. It dies and it comes back. So that wouldn't really help at all. So we just basically have to run past and ignore as many as possible.
Yeah, it's true. The thing with the levels where killing a lot of guards does help are levels like Silo and Train, where they either don't respawn at all, or there's like a very low respawn rate. So you actually are removing guards from the level. Whereas on War, there's always those 4 Skedar. I guess there were a lot of runs, though, where you saw the guys like shoot a Skedar before the first king especially, and those ones were guys trying to just avoid taking damage off of those Skedar on the way back outside of the room.
Yeah. I mean, that one, right before the first king is good. You can kill him and you won't come back before you turn around the corner to leave. So in that case, you want to kill them. Generally, you just try to ignore them. Unless they're, you sort of you get a sense for when guards or Skedar are going to shoot you. You sort of tell by their animation. So obviously, if something's right in your face and it's about to shoot you, you'll try and injure it. That's pretty normal.
So it's getting rid of the Skedar is very much a living thing, but not very much a leg thing.
Yeah.
Azura says, what made you come back to War instead of any other stage? I think you just got around to it. You have to play them all at some point, right?
Yeah, I played in those 6 months or so, when I was coming back to Perfect Dark, I pretty much played almost every single level. So it's just that was the next on the list. But I pretty much played the whole game again.
How optimized do you feel like the tech for War is? Have people taken apart the game code to know there are no more techniques? I don't think War has gotten that kind of treatment quite yet, and it's kind of a simpler level, so...
Yeah. The only real... If there was some sort of break that would happen, it would be to get a guard to open the locked door after the first king, but to get it to happen earlier, because we showed that one run with the different strategy, which was to block the Skedar from spawning below by looking at where they are. So it makes the Skedar appear on the catwalk above, which opens the locked door. So if you can get a Skedar to get that door open earlier, then that would be probably the one possibility of getting a much faster run. But everything else is pretty standard in that it's just a strafing level going from A to B. There's not much complexity where you could really do much with.
Yeah, B Percy asks, what level from GoldenEye compares the most to War in terms of difficulty and staying alive? I don't think it'd be Bunker 2. One that I kind of see might be similar is Train 00, because in both cases you're just trying to run full speed, run through and past guards, and try to stay alive. What do you think?
It would probably be, for me, Aztec. Train, the odds of surviving on Train is way better than surviving War.
Wow. It's that bad. I mean, that puts it into perspective for me, for sure.
I mean, with Train, yeah, I mean, the Train run itself is more optimized as far as movement and technique, whereas War is still much further behind as far as just movement because it's still held back by survival odds. So definitely, I would think Aztec probably is simple. I mean, is Aztec the worst GoldenEye level for survival?
Yeah, Aztec 00 for sure.
Yeah, it'd have to be. So probably that one.
So
and then even then, I wouldn't even think that would necessarily compare.
So
just in a sheer percentage odds of speedrunning through it. When you ask anyone who's played War PA, it's just terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
So you're telling me that War Perfect Agent is the hardest level of all to survive, even harder than Mayan SOS Perfect Agent?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Wow. And harder than Aztec 00 Agent.
If someone may be able to correct me, but well, Jungle's pretty bad. It's hard to say. It's hard to say.
I mean, Caverns 00 used to be really bad with no body armor.
Yeah. You could go on about trying to get in specifics, but it's definitely the worst in Perfect Dark, and it's comparable to the worst in GoldenEye for sure.
Now, someone asks in chat about Wouter Jansen on War. Now, the interesting thing is Wouter never really played Perfect Dark very much at all. He certainly never got many Untides. I think he might have got one or two. But he never really even got many records. Only 9 people have even ever gotten a record on War Perfect Agent. But the very interesting thing is, among the very few records that Wouter did have in Perfect Dark, War Agent and Special Agent were 2 of them. So Wouter does have a bit of history on War, just not on Perfect Agent.
Crazy. I didn't know that he had the War Special Agent record.
It looks like I'm looking at the one that lists all the records. I'm pretty sure he had it at 46 seconds. I'm going to check. And what I noticed in the lore was that he actually got War Agent 25 before Boss did, which was pretty crazy. So
yeah,
Wouter got War Special Agent 48 in 2002. That's what he had.
Okay.
And then he got War Agent 25 in 2007. That's like one of his last records of all. That's one of his most recent records of all. Would it be possible to beat all 3 difficulties of War simultaneously with 3 copied inputs from a single controller? I think it would, eh? Like the
no, because the level ends on Agent as soon as you kill the first king.
Yeah, but the inputs, let's say you plugged in Perfect Agent inputs and let it play out on all 3 difficulties, it could be done Agent, and then it would just put in the inputs.
It would just end. Yeah. Yeah, it's essentially the same. As though Agent, the beginning is the same. Then you'd have to do a slower strategy for Agent. Because as I mentioned, we use a lot of self-boosting on Agent. Same with Special Agent, we even use some directly looking down. So on Special Agent, we'll look down and do self-boosting for the beginning. Then as soon as we get into the hallways, we'll use the ceiling boosts. On Agent, which is full look-down boosts. And then on Perfect Agent, we don't do the start self-boosting. We do the ceiling boost as soon as we get into the hallway. So the strategies would have to be a little bit different. But yeah, it's essentially technically the same level, so you could definitely do that.
Yeah, technically possible, even though... I know when people have tried that in GoldenEye, because the game does have so much lag variance and guard randomness that it doesn't really work in practice. But in theory, it could work for sure. Yeah, I don't know if I really have a good answer for this. Casting the PD movie one. It is a fun one, but I don't know, man. It would be. You could give a different answer every couple years depending on who's the big movie stars, So
That reminds me of my war, not my war, G5 Perfect Agent 55 video, where I had a cast. I had a cast for Mr. Blonde. What's her name? Cass.
Yeah.
Patrolling guard.
Let's see.
I did a mock-up like an old school silent movie.
Yeah. Karl, this is a classic. Audio has been changed due to copyright.
Really?
Well,
it was just the end.
Oh, it still is the entertainer.
Oh, okay.
You know, oh, I see. Adam Moore's patrolling guard.
Yeah, that's just reminded me of that.
Funny stuff.
Right.
For a new speedrunner, what would be easier to grind? Champion of Perfect Dark or Champion of GoldenEye? Neither. No, I hate to say neither.
Well, personally, I think for me it'd be PD. GoldenEye is much more RNG dependent. The records, so GoldenEye you can sort of play it optimally and just spend weeks on a time. Perfect Dark's a lot less RNG dependent, where it's much more execution and knowledge. So if you really did study the strategies, work on doing everything optimally, you could definitely get to champion much faster in Perfect Dark.
Look, I was going to say there are certainly some speed games where you could pick it up, and within 1 year, certainly 2 years, you could become like the champion of the game. GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, I don't think that's the case, unfortunately. Wotus picked up GoldenEye and played really, really well, and after like 3 or 4 years, got to like second or third. So that kind of gives an example, and that's the best possible outcome, right? So even the newer Perfect Dark players, like Greenonet is third, and he's been playing for 4 or 5 years now, probably. Lake Demon, 3-4 years, he's ninth. So that kind of puts it into perspective there. A couple guys want to know, May 70 and Rank Stealer want to know if I'm going to play. I don't know, man. I just don't have plans of playing. I like doing these kind of streams. I've been weighing my options to like come back and stream and play some games, but I don't know. I'm just not feeling it, right? And that's probably the biggest thing. You don't want to force yourself to play when you don't want to. But there is an inkling brewing that could grow into something bigger. So we'll see.
It's a big commitment, especially if you've been out of the game for a while. It's hard to get back. It's like even exercise. You stop exercising for a while, then it feels so hard to get back into it. I mean, once you sort of get back into it for a bit, you can it's easier, but going from a complete break for a long time back into it would definitely be daunting. I would feel like it would just be, I don't know, a lot of skill loss, a lot of feel loss. So it definitely would be hard to come back and go for world records. I mean, it's doable. It's just a big commitment.
Has Karl ever read the action blocks from a level's code to understand the behavior of guards?
I don't do that. There are a few people out there that do that. I've never been one to look at code, so I'll just rely on other people to do that and sort of figure out the strats and everything. Not myself. I don't know how code works, and I don't know anything about coding. So even I've looked at the scripts, and they mean nothing to me at all. They mean absolutely nothing. So this wouldn't even be any point. Some people, though, they understand what everything means, but I certainly don't.
Yeah, to me it looks like a bunch of garbled letters and numbers. But that being said, I think Karl and I and other highly ranked players do understand the behavior of guards, just almost like from experience and intuition. It's like you get to a guard and there's like a certain set of animations he could do. He could roll, he could step this way. There's a few different shooting animations he could do. You know what those mean. And so we kind of have a good understanding of it from there.
Mm-hmm.
Why are maulers less effective against Skedar than humans? I don't think that's true. I think maulers are more effective against Skedar, right?
Maulers, I mean, the Skedars have a lot of health, for starters. I think a headshot will still kill them. But if you shoot a Skater in the body, probably they won't die to a fully charged up Mauler shot. It's probably just because they have more health. Humans will probably die to a charged up Mauler if you shoot them anywhere.
Captain Rick keeps asking about this 206 in Perfect Dark. I don't know what he's referring to.
That's attack ship.
Oh, of course, attack ship. Yeah, I mean, there is a new strategy on attack ship, eh?
There is a new strategy on attack ship. And I would love to... I did have a crack. Mm-hmm. The problem is the audience base for Perfect Dark is currently a lot lower than GoldenEye. And so I can't really afford to play Perfect Dark right now. Maybe if we do more Perfect Dark speed laws, and I work on my YouTube channel and sort of build some hype and get some more understanding out there, then more people will want to see Perfect Dark. But it's pretty understandable. GoldenEye sold like 4 times as many copies as Perfect Dark. So until you build the community and build up the audience, it's going to be a quarter of the size of GoldenEye just naturally. So right now, it's just much better for me, especially because I'm trying to build my stream. It's much better for me to play GoldenEye than it is to play Perfect Dark.
Definitely true. But yeah, that brings up a good point. Perhaps the next speed lore or a speed lore we could do coming up could be attack ship. Basically, kind of the teaser there is that it's now been understood that something that does affect the speed of the ending, and people have kind of figured out a way to at least a little bit more consistently get an ending as fast as Chuya. So 206...
I practiced it for about an hour, just getting runs to the end, which doesn't happen normally, because normally to get a world record pace run to the end takes a bit longer. But I was just doing casual runs to the end, and I got a run that was faster than Chuya's. Or it was 19 seconds, which is what he got. And I got that within an hour. And I also got a 20-second end, which is enough for the world record. So yeah, I mean, that's massive. That's absolutely massive. It's just going to take, I could take a small grind to get back there, but I just couldn't afford to do it right now.
Exactly. Yeah, but the thing is, it's the storms of brewing on attack ship agent, and it could happen for sure. So yeah, that might be an interesting lore one to do in the future. And I think on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this speed lore. Thanks for your Q&As, for your questions. Thanks for enjoying speed lore. And I do want to say that, I really enjoy doing these. Even if I'm not streaming, gameplay regularly, I do want to do speed lore like this all the time. I really enjoy it. I'm really happy that you guys enjoy it and like it so much. And, even though I know you guys enjoy it so much, they're not always the biggest videos on my channel. They don't necessarily grow my channel, my YouTube channel. And it's like, oftentimes, especially this happened last year, it's like I want to do speed lore, but I would get distracted at the end of the month because some big event happened. I'd have to make a video, or I knew that video was going to be a bigger video than doing speed lore, and I'd get distracted with that. But I really want to do a bunch of speed lore episodes this year. And for that, I need you guys' support, So I've made this Patreon for Speedlore, patreon.com/Speedlore. It's going to be amazing. I have some really cool goals, tiers, all that kind of stuff. And I'd appreciate if you guys could check it out and consider supporting Speedlore on Patreon, because I really want to make it happen. I really want to do, at least one episode a month. Ideally, one GoldenEye and one Perfect Dark episode a month. And, I totally, if you can't, I understand, we all know what it's like. If you can, though, just be sure to smash like, because that helps out immensely as well. But yeah, check it out, patreon.com/Speedlore, and I'd really appreciate if you would consider supporting there. So yeah, what do you think about doing more Speedlore episodes this year, Karl?
Yeah, I'd really love to do more Speedlore. There's a lot of rich speedrunning history in the Perfect Dark community. And with a lot of the newer players coming in and the older players, moving on, a lot of this history is becoming forgotten these days. So I think speedlore needs to be done to ensure this information history is preserved. So I really, really hope we can get some support to do that. And do you want to talk about the incentives for how the Patreon will work as far as your goals?
Well, I mean, yeah, no, I have some goals there right now. It's like, if I meet these goals, then, you know, I'll do a certain number of episodes. That's what I have right now. So, you know, the next goal is to do a GoldenEye episode, and I think we can probably get that done pretty quickly, right? So there you go. You know, we're gonna do a GoldenEye episode, and then from there, just kind of the number of episodes, you know, and kind of the ultimate culmination is to do 10 episodes a year. That's going to be amazing. If we can do that, 10 GoldenEye, 10 Perfect Dark. I know some people want to see the Mr. Blonde Revenge one. That one's going to be insane. So yeah, check it out. And like I say, you know, if you can support there, then great. And I really appreciate that. And I think that more or less wraps it up for the night. So there you guys have it. Thanks to Karl hugely for co-hosting and putting this together. Great work as always. Thank you for that, Karl. And thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed and learned a little bit about War Perfect Agent and all the stories and characters that went along with it. I am really glad to be back doing Speedlore. I really hope to do a GoldenEye episode in the not too distant future and to continue this series through the year. So thank you for supporting my content, enjoying these stories, and here's to an amazing year ahead. Stay true, my friends, and I'll see you in the next stream or video, guys. Take care.